On today's episode of the Yaesu The Radio Show podcast, we are going to talk about DGID, not so much as what DGID is, but more so about how to set it up in the repeater. That's for today's episode on Friday, April 4th, on the Yaesu The Radio Show podcast. And welcome, everybody, to the Yaesu The Radio Show podcast. I'm your host, John Crook. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. As always, we have a lot of great people that just enjoy the podcast. We have a fun time making it, the topics that are coming in. And today's topic is one of those things where we always told you guys, hey, if you have a certain topic, you have a certain question, please send an email to us saying, hey, John, Yaesu, we would like to hear a little bit more about this. And today's topic is actually a request from a group, and actually I shouldn't say group. It's a couple different people that are going on and saying, John, can you clarify this a little bit more? Can you help us give us some things on there? And it's talking about DGID. Not so much as in talking about like what DGID is in the concept and how it works, but more so as how DGID operates within the repeater, within IMRS operation on there, and things to go ahead and consider about. Now, we've talked about DGID in the past, but this is going to be kind of a good refresher and a good primer for those that either have DGID with an IMRS setup or those that wish to go ahead and do it. So that's going to be for today's episode. But before we do that, let's go ahead and say, John, DGID, you said IMRS. What is IMRS? Well, that's built into our DR-2X repeater when you order the repeater with the LAN card. And guess what? The Yaesu DR-2X repeater program is going through May 31st of 2025. That's right, May 31st, 2025. Your club, your group, your organization, whatever it is, can go ahead and get a DR-2X repeater. That's right, DR-2X repeater program for North America. Now, unfortunately, this is only for North America. It's not for the rest of the world. I'm sorry, we get a lot of calls and saying, well, you should open up to the rest of the world and stuff. I would love to be in charge of the world, but unfortunately, I'm just in charge of my little spot of North America, and the DR-2X program is going on there. What is the cost? Well, hey, thanks for asking. Right now, the cost is $950 for a DR-2X without the LAN board in there, or $1,300 for the LAN board in there. Now, a lot of people saying, John, why should I buy a repeater for $950 or $1,300? Well, first of all, I would go ahead and argue, where can you find a VHF or UHF? Now, you don't have to specify. This repeater is both VHF and UHF for $950. A brand new one on top of it comes with the 3-year warranty, field programmable, no worries about software and programming cables and blah, 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 blah. You don't have to need to worry about that in any way, shape, or form. All you have to do is go ahead and buy the repeater, take it out of the box, go ahead and enter everything from the front of the panel there, and you are good to go. But where do I get that? How do I get that deal? Do I go to my Yaesu dealer? No, it's actually offered through us directly, Yaesu USA. Go on over to the System Fusion website. That is systemfusion.yaesu.com. Once again, the word System Fusion, altogether, .yaesu, YEESU.com. Scroll down to the bottom of the page and you're going to see that beautiful blue link there that says DR-2X repeater programming. Click on that. You'll download a fillable PDF and simply fill it out, send it on in to us, and then you will have a great Yaesu repeater, dual band repeater, dual receiver, just everything underneath the sun. This is a Swiss Army tool for repeaters. Don't worry about going ahead and not having any repeater knowledge, because we also do help with offering education on there. Head on over and check it on out today. Alrighty, as stated, so where does this come from? So, for those of you that know me, and even other people and stuff like that, IMRS is a great way, or as we call it, the LAN card sometimes, but IMRS is a great way to be able to link repeaters in true digital voice without, and I want to stress this, without the internet. Unlike WiresX, which requires you to have a device connected to a computer, which then is connected to the internet, and depending on if you're going to go ahead and use the HRI 200 or not, you may have to have ports set up and all this kind of stuff like that on there, or if you're using PDN, but you have to have an internet connection. IMRS, you do not. IMRS can run on the internet, but it also can run on the intranet. It can also go ahead and run in a connected network fashion. So LAN network, WAN network, once again, internet, intranet, microwave, mesh networks, whatever. As long as the IP packets of traffic go from the one repeater out to the other repeaters, it can go ahead and function on there. You don't need the internet. Now, what some people have done, and I personally have played with it, is that there are servers, we'll call it, IMRS servers. That's a better way to generally put it. IMRS servers. Now, what do these IMRS servers do? Well, these IMRS servers basically act like a server network. So if you do want to connect it to the internet, you can connect your repeater to the internet and then have it go to the server, as compared to what IMRS was designed for and can still be used, which is a peer-to-peer network. We're not going to get into too much of the IMRS aspect of things today. What we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the function from the front of the repeater, which is going to be setting up your DGIDs and the associated, which is important, timeout timers for said DGIDs. Now, quick primer on DGID. DGID is sort of like the digital equivalent to a CTCSS or DCS tone. Some people may also know it as PL and DPL, but that's really what it is the equivalent of. Digital is ones and zeros. Analog, FM, where PL and DPL or CTCSS and DCS reside, actually are analog waveforms. They're injected as a subaudible tone into the waveform. So they're either a nice kind of sine wave or they're a square wave, depending on if you're using, once again, CTCS or DCS. When you're talking digital, that doesn't exist. It's ones and zeros. There's no sine wave, square waves, nothing like that. It's ones and zeros. So how do you do selective access? Okay, different modes have different ways to do it on there. What we did is we call it DGID, Digital Grouping ID. Now, it's not a talk group. And the reason being is that talk groups require you to have the same transmit and receive talk group, that transmit and receive number for a talk group. You can't transmit on one and receive on the other. You can't do that. You can do that with CTCSS and DCS, which you can also do with DGID. In addition, you don't need to have DGID turned on. The DGID scheme goes from 00 to 99. 00 is no DGID, where 01 through 99 are DGIDs on there. So what you could do is you could turn a DGID on for transmit only, and then receive would be 00. Or transmit 00, but receive would be one of the numbers. Or you can have it both turned on, that transmit and receive are the same DGID. Or you can turn it on that transmit is one DGID and receive is another DGID. Or you could turn it so both are 00, which means they're both turned off. Once again, you don't have that functionality with talk groups. That's why DGID is not a talk group on there. But much like PL CTCSS tones, if you have it set up certain ways, you have to have either A, the other user using it, or B, the other user not using it. So that's where DGIDs come into play. Now, when it comes in regards to the DR-2X and setting it up with the IMRS board, or the IMRS technologies, that's the better way to put it, IMRS technology with the LAN board. So you need the LAN board to do IMRS. IMRS is the concept, the LAN is the hardware, okay? What you could do in that case is you have a couple different ways to set up your DGIDs. Now, DGIDs in the DR-2X offer three types of RF operation. Now, wait a minute, John. You said three types of RF operation. And usually when I repeat this is kind of one of those like, you know what? I'm going to pause the podcast here. I'm going to stop the YouTube video. I'm going to go ahead and get a notebook and write this down. So what you do is in the setup of a DR-2X repeater, you're going to have a DGID that can be used as quote-unquote local. L-O-C-A-L, local. Okay, not loco as in crazy, but local as in close to a certain region. Now that allows you to access the repeater RF-wise. That's what it means. You're going into the repeater RF-wise, and it's coming out RF-wise. You're not going out anywhere else. You're not going down a network. You're not going down anything. It's just local. The second way you can do it is what we call and I'm actually going to go a higher level, and I'm going to go back to the middle one in a minute because then it will make sense. You have what they call group. And when you do a DGID in the group, you assign one DGID, and what that group setting does, it says anytime I hear a DGID coming into the repeater via RF, I'm going to send it down the network on how you have the IMRS card programmed. Okay? So once again, DGID comes in, goes in. If it matches the group then says, okay, hey, I'm at this local repeater here. I'm hearing this DGID. I need to use the LAN board to send it out on the IMRS network, how you have it set up in the LAN board, the IMRS functionality. Now, that's the top and the bottom. Now, group also allows the DGID signal coming in, meaning if another repeater has that DGID, if they key up on their end, your repeater is going to hear the traffic from the other repeater because the DGIDs match, and then it's going to key up your repeater via RF. Now, the reason I said local doesn't go anywhere, stays on the RF level, but then group goes ahead and is a two-way way, meaning you can initiate it or you can receive it. But now you have a one called repeater group, which is sort of halfway in between the two. The reason I describe it halfway in between the two is because with repeater group, you can take your radio, program up that DGID, and then that can initiate the call from your repeater via RF out to those other repeaters, but it doesn't allow the call to come in. So if we're going to use it, I'm going to use an argument's sake here, okay? So let's say I have a repeater set up for using DGID 1 as local, DGID 10 as repeater group, and DGID 99 as group. Okay, so 1 local, 10 repeater group, 99 group. So I come into my repeater, I take my radio, turn it to DGID 1, and I key up. The repeater will open up because it hears the DGID 1, and then it's going to repeat it locally. Now I take my radio, and I set the DGID to 10, and I key up on 10. The repeater hears it, repeats it locally, but then it sends it out to any other repeater that has DGID 10 built into their system. So they would have to have it as either their local or they would have to have it as a group. So that's that one-way initiation. Now I switch my radio to DGID 99. 99 goes ahead, hears me, I key up on 99, repeats it locally, and then it goes ahead and sends it out down to the other repeaters that have DGID 99 programmed into their repeaters, and then it goes ahead and keys. But also, if my repeater's sitting here doing nothing, someone keys up on DGID 99 in the group on theirs, it will automatically open up my repeater also. So that's the kind of thing to keep about when setting it up and determining. So repeater group is one-way initiation, your repeater out, but then group is initiation from my repeater or received from another repeater. Now, let's go ahead and dive into a little bit more on timeout timers real quick. In the DR-2X, you have not only a timeout timer for RF operation, you also have a timeout timer for IMRS link operation. And what we mean by that is that setting it up so that when you initiate a connection with the DGID in repeater group or group, once the connection has gone out from the repeater and made to those other repeaters, it will hold that connection for X amount of time. So you could have it set to 0, which means once you unkey, boom, it's done. You can set up to 30 seconds. Hold that connection for 30 seconds, boom, done. Alrighty? So we'll go ahead and continually do that. Now, the connection stays active in an IMRS timeout timer situation while traffic is received. So in other words, if I have it set for 30 seconds and I key up, and like this is a 9 UPC on DGID 10. Okay, boom. I release the key, the repeater unkeys, then the timer starts. 1, 2, 3, 4. If any traffic is heard with DGID 10 from my end or one of the other repeaters that had DGID 10 that it connected to, if traffic comes into the repeater or I send traffic out of the repeater, it's going to, after that last key transmission is done, it resets the timer for 30 seconds. Okay? Now, there's multiple layers of timers you can do in there. You could do an IMRS timeout timer of 0, or you could do it continuous. So once you go ahead and key up the radio and you continuous, it's going to be continuous. That's how it's going to be on there permanently. There's a few people, I guess, that use that, but realistically, it's not. That's not the way to do it. If you're using multiple DGIDs for connectivity, you don't want to go ahead and do continuous. But there is a whole series of values you can program in to that IMRS timeout timer. And once again, it is the IMRS timeout timer, not the RF timer. Now, right about this point, usually when I talk to people like this, they're going to say, John, I need some pictures to the words. Where can I go ahead and get that? And you know what? I'm glad you asked. Head on over to our Yaesu.com website. That's right, Yaesu.com. And you can go ahead and then get all the information you have. You need manuals for it. PDF manuals are there for your radios. In the upper left corner, there's going to be products. Select products. Select then the actual product you need to do. Go to the landing page of that product on there, and then select what you want. Select what you need, and you will be able to go ahead and do that. All the manuals, all the files, everything like that on there. And the manuals, there might be multiple manuals per radio, but that's where you can go ahead and do that. In this case, for what we're talking about today, all this is in the DR-2X manual. Go down to Yaesu.com website. Click products in the upper left corner. It's going to do that drop-down menu. Select digital. Along the top, select the DR-2X, then select file, and then download the DR-2X manual and look at it in the settings on there. You'll be able to go ahead and find out what you need to do there, what the values of that IMRS timeout timer are, as well as the other operations of the DR-2X repeater in this case. Did you know that the DR-2X repeater also has connectivity ports on the back for a D-sub-15 and a 10-pin mini DIN, allowing you to integrate analog or FM voice communications into the repeater, or allowing it to do digital operation in a separate mode on there? Go ahead and check that out. Yaesu.com, our website. And hey, if you're listening from outside North America and you think, hey, is this website good for the worldwide? Yep, but if you want more specific website for, like, let's say Japan or the UK, check along the top of the Yaesu.com website, click on your flag up there or click on the region up there, and you'll be able to go ahead and be taken directly to the website of Yaesu.com for your different regions. Head on over and check it out today. Alrighty. So once again, that kind of covers it. You have local, you have repeater group, and you have group. Now, this is the little bit of a part that a lot of people aren't aware of that really allow you to make this repeater amazing. Did you know you can set up with IMRS and DGID? Did you know you can actually set up remote receive sites with your repeater? That's right. Remote receive sites with your repeater. Now, what does that exactly mean, John? Well, there are going to be some times and situations where you have a repeater, and while it's a great coverage site, you need a little bump. You need a little, like, man, I wish I could go local with my handheld, which would then go in there. So sometimes they're called remote receive sites. Sometimes they're called satellite sites. There's a bunch of different names for it. It's all nomenclature in that regards. But what you can do with your operation when you are programming the group setting for DGID, what that allows you to do is that when you click in on group, you're going to first of all have to select the DGID. Now, you cannot reuse the same DGID. You can't have a DGID that's for local, also be for repeater group, and also be for group. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way at all. Okay? But what you could do then in that case is once you've selected DGID, along the top row in the group screen setting, you're going to see one that says downlink. And that could be either on or it can be off. Now, what downlink in that case means is that downlink would mean it would go out via RF. Meaning, if I set up, in this example we had earlier, DGID 99, what's going to happen in that case then is DGID 99 is going to come in. But if I turn downlink off, it's not going to key my transmitter. It's not going to key it at all. Okay? So then what ends up happening in that case is that I can go into the repeater. That will go out on that DGID, but it will not key up my repeater from traffic coming in. But then you're like, well, John, isn't that in essence what repeater group is? No, that's not the concept of repeater group. Repeater group was designed more so to do initiation of one-way communications to test. And I'll get to that in 1 second here to test the other repeaters. But when in this group feature you turn downlink off, it will not key up your repeater. This is how you can make a digital repeater while you have the DR-2X running in a different setting. And I know this seems weird, but let me explain it to you. So let's say we have a DR-2X, and we're going to call it the Alpha site. We're just throwing names out there so people can understand. Alpha site. Alpha site, whew, great site. About 150 feet up in the air. It's at a high elevation. Great playing site. 150 feet up. And let's say that repeater is on well, bear with me because I know different parts of the United States have different things. But let's say we're in the Midwest, and let's say that repeater is on 444.000, right? So if you were to transmit on the repeater, it'd be 449.000, 5 megahertz offset. So here I am going ahead. I key up into that repeater, 444.000. That's what I receive on the handheld transits on 449.000. Now, let's say, this is a good MCOM usage thing, by the way. Let's say I'm at a hospital. And let's say that hospital is about 10 miles away from the repeater site. And as much as that repeater site plays great, that hospital is nothing but brick, steel, and everything else, and I cannot get out of that hospital. Okay? What I can do is I can put a DR-2X on top of that hospital. Okay? And then what I can do is that I can take and set it up for the repeater to receive on 449.000 whatever that DGID I want to use between the two sites. So I have to determine a DGID. In this case, let's say 5. Okay, DGID 5. So now if I key up the main site on DGID 5, okay, I'm going to key it up. It's going to go good. It's going to go great. Boom, not a problem whatsoever. Now if I go ahead and key up locally into that repeater with the DGID, it's going to go in on 5, okay, locally at that hospital. Then the DR-2X sends it out to the other main DR-2X, and then it's going to transmit there. Now, here at this site, I have the downlink set to off. So it's not going to transmit. Okay, it's not going to transmit at all, but it's going to be used as a receive site, and then it's going to go there. So now what happens is I could transmit into the repeater, because I could still hear it. Let's say I could still hear the repeater. I just can't get out of the hospital. My little 5-watt, 4-watt handheld's not going to cut it. And this is an all too common scenario, right? So what's going to happen in that case is I can go in locally and it can go out there. Now what makes the DR-2X really great in this case is you could set that up on the B side. And then on the A side, you could set that up, say, for a VHF repeater. So you have a VHF repeater operating on the A side of the repeater doing its thing, hey, hi, ho, blah, 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 and then you're going in on, let's say, the B side as a remote receiver for the DR-2X using this group setup with the DGID, and guess what? Now you have the ability to have one repeater act not only as a repeater, but also act as a remote receive site for another repeater, all because of the DGID and the group settings. I don't know about you, but that's pretty cool in my book, right? That's the great setup on there. So that's just some of the functionality with DGIDs and IMRS. Okay? So kind of a recap, you have local, which means you use that DGID to only talk locally via RF. You have repeater group, which allows you to initiate a connection between repeaters or the server on that repeater group. or you have group, which it allows you to initiate the connection as well as receive connections from the other repeaters or the server on there. IMRS timeout timer, once again, 30 seconds, and it kind of goes up from there. How you set it up is going to determine that IMRS timeout timer. That's really going to go ahead and be the basis of that on there. Now, I know this might be a tall drink of water. I know I'm probably going to get more questions on there. That's fine. That's not a problem. If people really want a class on this, because we've offered a class before on it, we had some people who were interested on there and others that were like, that's fine. I'm not going to use that functionality on there. Shoot me an email. Let me know, because we are always looking for content to do as an educational resource on there. So go ahead and send me an email then, j.kruk@yaesu.com. That's j.kruk@yaesu.com. And then in the subject line, put podcast, something that I know that you heard it from here, and then we can go ahead and chat and communicate about it on there. Well, that's for today's episode of the Yaesu The Radio Show podcast. I hope you found it interesting. I like IMRS. I think this is really cool. It is more flexible than any other type of IP system connect stuff that's out there, in my opinion. Gives you more flexibility. You don't have to program it in essence, you set the DGIDs up in your repeater. Once you've programmed that IMRS board, the LAN board, to call to the other repeaters, you can make all the changes from the front. So it's really non-involved is the best way to go ahead and put it on there. So thank you for listening for today's episode. Stay tuned for more episodes coming up. We're going to have definitely more podcasts, more interesting things coming up on the podcast, all the way as we head up into Hamvention 2025 on there. We're not going to have a podcast that week, obviously, because we're going to be at Hamvention. But definitely stick around. Stay there for more. Stay safe. Take care. And guess what? I'll catch you on down the log.